For over half a century, humans have endeavored to make business a force for good. But is the movement working? Or is it time to explore a new path forward? Welcome to Less Talk, More Action. We are your hosts, Joel Caesar and Owen Barrett, experts in clean energy, net zero real estate, decarbonization, and entrepreneurship. In each episode, we ask provocative questions and share stories from the front lines of sustainability with leaders in science, tech, and business, taking real action to design a cleaner, better future. Thanks for joining the conversation. Now, let's get to work. Welcome to Less Talk, More Action podcast. My name is Joel Caesar, the world's undisputed voice of building decarbonization. Also recently added from you, Owen, the king of AI, or the king of AI decarb, I think maybe I'll go with. And then joining me here is Owen Barrett, the world's smartest, fastest growing solar company owner in the world. Man, I fumbled that one. We'll have to work on this a little bit.
Give you a simple sentence to read.
Enough about us. Today's guest, John Reister, is the founder and CEO of GoPowerEV, a company focused on making electric vehicle charging accessible and scalable for multifamily housing. John and I know each other. I'm actually an advisor of the company, so huge fan of what he's trying to do, solving a real problem. Definitely a guy who knows his stuff. What'd you think?
Yeah, I think it was great. I mean, so many of the roadblocks that he runs into with EV charging, we run into with solar. So definitely a familiar space, and his tech is solving a really big problem. So it'll be cool to see just how widely adopted he gets.
Yeah, well, we'll be rooting for you, John. But before we get into all that with John, let's dive into a segment. It's a recurring segment, something we like to do. I've gotten feedback that people like this bit where we say stories from the front lines. You and I are out there selling, building companies, trying to make things happen, working with the world's biggest clients. And of course, it's messy and fun, and people want to hear what's actually happening on the ground. So what do you got this week?
So anyone that listens to the show probably knows that I talk a lot of shit about multifamily owners and their inability to move fast. I had an experience this week that kind of changed my attitude. We got the green light from one of the largest affordable housing owners in the U.S. to basically do as much solar as we can before July 4th. So, day one had an hour-long meeting with the COO. Day two had an hour-long meeting with the CFO and CEO. And in 2 hours, they got it. They made a decision. And then they ended the meeting with good luck. And now it's on us to figure out how much we can execute. And so they're a lot larger than some of the other customers that we work with who move slowly. And so I don't think getting big means you have to move slow. I think bureaucracy creeps in and then people get complacent with it. And that's why organizations move slow.
Have you seen the movie, the Ford versus Ferrari movie? Matt Damon's in it.
Yeah.
I watched it recently, and there's this great part where Matt Damon's pretty much calling out Henry Ford, I guess it's one of the descendants of Henry Ford, about how there's so much bureaucracy and middle management, and Henry Ford gets pissed. He's like, "Yeah, from now on, you answer to me." And it's like this reminder that if you're a leader of these companies, you have to be aware the middle management is always going to be sucking you dry, and at some point, you got to step up and make the real decisions.
Yeah, and there's this attitude of we're big, we move slow. That's just how it is.
It doesn't have to be that way.
It doesn't have to be. No.
Elon doesn't operate like that.
No, yeah, exactly. It doesn't have to be that way, and I think people need to get out of that just that mentality that's just what happens when you get big.
It's actually a great segue to the point I was going to make, which is less about actual stories from the front lines, more of a process story I'm going to tell about the way AI is moving. So I'm at a younger startup. We move really fast. We're an AI native company. It's the product we sell. So we really try to lean into using AI on internal processes. And I was pitching to a client recently, pretty large, one of the world's largest commercial real estate owners. We'd all know who they were. And we were talking about what we do. And then there was a side conversations afterwards because it was a lunch and learn. And this energy manager was like, I could build what you guys are doing. And whether or not he's true, he sounded really smart. He uses SQL. He's one of these kind of nerds who's good at programming his own stuff. But he's like, my company won't even let me use these tools on their work laptop. We're only allowed to use Copilot. And even that is somewhat limited with AI. And it got me thinking, I've heard this a few times with people because we try to generate a dialogue with clients before we get into saying, Cambio's doing AI. We try to say, hey, how are you using AI now? Are you incorporating AI in your personal life? Are you helping any of your workflows with one of the more publicly facing products? And, you get different answers. But just to show how some of these big companies are moving so slow and their fear-based systems and rules are creating environments where their staff can't adopt these products, and like we're the opposite. And what
Yeah.
Claude Cowork has done recently, because we've adopted this Claude Cowork tool, and just mind-blowing how fast I'm moving. And I'm like one of the older people in the company, probably not using it nearly as fast as some of our software engineers, but it's just another reminder to your point, these older legacy companies with these mindsets. Oh, well, we're big and this is just how it has to be. It's like, well, you're
It
going to fall
doesn't.
behind quickly in
Yeah.
2026. That's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Get
Well,
big and move fast.
yeah, well, move fast and don't make an excuse that we're big and you can't, I think is the
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Well, that was fun and a good segue into a great conversation with a technologist we had on the show, John Reister. Joining us today is John Reister, founder and CEO of GoPowerEV, a company focused on making electric vehicle charging accessible and scalable for multifamily housing communities. With a background in product strategy, marketing, and technology leadership at companies including Aris and Visona Networks, John has built GoPowerEV into a platform helping property owners deploy EV charging infrastructure without costly electrical upgrades. His work is helping bridge the infrastructure gap that stands between many residents and widespread EV adoption. So, John, welcome to Less Talk, More Action.
Great to be here. Thanks.
Okay, John, well, we like to get right to work. We ask all our guests the same first question. How are you taking action to make the world a better place?
Yeah, we've been putting the rubber onto the road, since the beginning. We're multifamily housing energy specialists. We provide a turnkey experience for the property owners. We get the infrastructure into the properties. We provide the full stack of hardware, software, and services. And then we operate it as distributed energy resources. So we help the tenants. We give them educational materials about electric vehicles. We enable low-cost, convenient personal power ports so they can charge right in their own space. We recently completed the largest EV installation of a multifamily property on the West Coast. We were recognized by the California State Legislature for that achievement. And then, operationally, we monitor the energy use in the building in real time, and then we adjust the energy flow to the EVs to meet everyone's needs. And now we're building that into a virtual power plant with demand orchestration and soon, energy export. So it's about enabling the growth of EVs in multifamily apartment buildings and then leveraging those assets to solve problems of the grid and, make the world a little more sustainable.
That's awesome. So, John, on the VPP front, and I just asked this because we're starting to explore VPPs too. Our EVs are not bidirectional yet. So when you say VPP, do you mean it's more of a timing of when you're allowing EVs to charge and not charge on multifamily properties, depending on time of day and load and all that fun stuff?
Yeah, so the current is exactly that: demand response and demand flex. You can lump those together as demand orchestration. And doing that based on what else is going on in the building. So when the air conditioning and the cooking is done and the air conditioning goes off, we can do more charging. So we sort of adjust things like that, and then also can adjust things fully off the peak times. But the bidirectional V2G is right around the corner. There's already trials going on. We have relationships with a few auto OEMs who are telling us that their hardware will be ready in the next model year, and then it just is a matter of enabling it in software.
So, John, you and I know each other a bit. I've known about your product and the vision of your company for a few years here. But let's dumb it down for a second for the audience, if you don't mind. I mean, like when we read your bio, one of the things you point out is this challenge for the EV market, especially in multifamily, which is electrical capacity upgrades. So I've heard you say this, but I think it'll be good for the audience, and maybe Owen will have ideas too when you describe like why is that the pain point? I think I know, but let's like really try to simplify. Why is there not more EV charging in multifamily? Why isn't it adopted? Why does it cost so much? Yeah, go from there.
It is a tough nut to crack. Multifamily is very difficult. You've got a lot of stakeholders, and certainly the utility and the availability of power is one of the top ones. But it's making things work for the landlord. They want to attract residents. They're positive on this generally, especially when their tenants are interested. But yeah, just dealing with city and the permit, the utility, and then you get into subsidies, the electrician, maintenance. It's just too much. And so we heard that from them when founding the company, and just heard that it was overwhelming.
And not to interrupt, but like status quo, it might be before you came along. There's other EV charging installation companies. There's other EV charging products, hardware. They'd come to a multifamily owner and say, "Hey, you got you could attract more tenants if you had more EV charging because they want to have EVs." And they would say, "Great, but the specs on these EV charging machines say I need an incredible amount more of electrical capacity in this building."
Yeah.
And I know as a building owner who tries to work with utilities and electricians, that's going to be a pain in the ass. So thanks, but no thanks. And I guess that's where you're trying to solve.
Yeah, and it's not definitely the energy, but the whole approach and mindset in EVs is we got to charge this car in 5 or 10 minutes. Let's get a ton of energy in really, really fast. And it's completely impractical for the grid and for other reasons in an apartment building. And so what you were left with is somebody putting in a couple of pedestals. And I don't know if you remember the game Musical Chairs when you were a kid. You probably remember it fondly, but it wasn't that much fun, to be honest. And as an adult, it really it really sucks to play with your car. You people stick their toe in the water and say, "Great, I'm going to put in two, 50 amp chargers. It costs $15,000 a port." And then, it's great for the first two people of EVs on maybe a 40 or 50 unit property. But once you've got 10 or 15 people and they're fighting over it, it's a real problem. And, to put in more requires a ton of power and a ton of cost, and it just doesn't make sense. And so a lot of landlords anticipate this, and the smarter ones, to be honest, they say, "I won't do anything that's going to cause my tenants to fight with each other." And so they don't even want to put something in that's going to be great for 6 months and then suck after. So
What's your perspective on that? That to me seems like idiocracy, but is that like a real pushback of owners? I'd rather do nothing because it will avoid conflict than doing something that will add value.
Well,
Is
oh,
that a real thing that you hear?
absolutely a real thing.
Owen, I was waiting for you to jump in when he says multifamily is a tough nut to crack because I know that's something you talk about a lot, right?
Well, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that. But that's a new one to me of this perspective of I would rather do nothing.
The
than
landlord
do
is not
something
going to
good.
put in something that is going to almost immediately cause their tenants to bicker and argue with each other. I would say the number two thing that landlords hate is trying to resolve disputes between tenants. And it's obviously
number one thing?
two after not paying rent. So they, that's and the problem there is, and we saw this at, we implemented at Stanford University Terrace. They had a couple shared chargers out in front. It's 128 units in the building, and they put them in like, I don't know, 2017 or 2018, and then they were breaking because they've got the 20-foot cord, People drive over, and they people don't treat it well when they're renting it. And so they were breaking, unreliable. And then, yeah, if you're not the first one home, and your neighbor's always in the space, it's just really irritating. And
I
then,
do, John, just real quick. I'm curious. I do want to hear more about how you guys get around the need to upgrade service, because that's fascinating. But I would also like you to explain what you do to maintain these chargers, because of every public charger I go to, probably 50 to 75% are busted.
Yeah.
yeah,
They just don't. It's like a massive problem, and
Yeah. Isn't it worse
I
though
don't
when
get it.
and it's like, well, you don't have the app for this one, so then you're sitting there in a
Oh,
parking
yeah,
deck.
and you got to
and
get
you're
there's
downloading some
everyone's
new
got its own
technology.
fucking app.
And so I'm selling these things John's heard a
you've
ton of. So
highlighted some great problems, and they were ones that were apparent to, when I was going out and touring the properties, founding the company. And on the, on the maintenance, we have 99% uptime, and we designed our unit so that the smart part of the unit um, just snaps into a mounting base, and the mounting base is like a hunk of metal. It's almost indestructible, and it also has all the wiring terminations in it. So you put in the mounting base, and the electrician's done, the permit's done, the inspection's done, and then we can just snap in units as people buy EVs. So it scales really well. You can start with 10% of the units, enough for 10% of the units. And then as people buy EVs, we can just snap in more to those, we call them ready bases. And then that same snapping in, takes about 2 minutes to snap it in and then commission it. And you or I can do it. It doesn't require an electrician. And the
How do you get
same
around
logic.
how do you get around the need to upgrade service if you're adding
well, let's
if you're adding
yeah,
load?
let's go there, John. Let's have you articulate
Yeah,
how
that's
do
on
you,
the energy management.
how have you fixed the electrical capacity issue with your solution?
So we charge currently our units are a hybrid level 2, level 1, and we
Wait.
recognize.
Let's for the audience. Let's make sure we dumb that down for a second. So that's level. The level of like electrical capacity coming through. There's more, and in level 2, it'll charge faster, right?
Yeah, level 2 charges a bit faster.
Is the
Level
level
1
one
is
trickle
like
charge?
Like the plug in
level
my wall.
1 it gets you 50 miles overnight. Level
Okay.
2, our level 2 gets you about 150 miles overnight.
Okay.
And we install these so that they're in everybody's own space. So we call it personal charging. And we put in a lot, and we have energy management. And, we do a load study, figure out what energy is available. But then with the latest energy management, we control the concurrent charging. So our app allows the user to indicate their departure time and how many miles of range they need by the departure time. That's the only thing they set. And then they tap on it, and then we manage all the energy. For example, Owen, if it's 5 in the afternoon, and you plug in and you say I'm going to leave at 8 o'clock the next morning, so you're going to be there for whatever that is, 15 hours, and you say I want to add whatever 60 miles of range or whatever you're looking for by then. We can then manage that. We have the pricing of by time of use. We have the pricing as well, and we're also tied into the grid to understand the state of the grid. So essentially, adjusting your charging, and so we put the energy into your car when it's cheapest, and then we can look at not just you, but across everybody on the property, and
So it's the
basically manage the aggregate demand.
it's the energy management software that's enabling you to install the capacity without upgrading the electrical infrastructure. Now, my
We call it
question.
power shift.
Oh, cool. Love the branding. My question goes to then, is there a permitting question to I guess the city or whoever is going to be allowing you to install the equipment, and or especially if you're getting into maybe like sophisticated multifamily owners who have in-house engineering teams who might be skeptical. Is there like, well, what if your energy management software doesn't work? Are we going to have then capacity issues in our building?
So the energy management software is, goes through UL certification. The latest standard is UL 3141. Um, and it has fallbacks. We have a local controller. We don't rely on the cloud for this. I mean, a lot of the intelligence and settings and parameters and things come from the cloud, but that can kind of get pushed down every 15 minutes. We have local control that actually can assess everything that's going on in the property locally. So we're not dependent on that. It makes it more reliable. But then there's a fallback, and you kind of say, all right, worst case, we can support 5 simultaneous charging sessions at, some particular amount of amps. And if we have all the real-time data, it can go up from there. So if for whatever reason we lose that real-time data, we just temporarily suspend back down to that safe level until the data connectivity resumes.
John, going back to your point about property managers being adverse to causing conflict, if there's 3 cars charging and they all want to get 100 miles overnight, it's maybe not such a big deal. But if all of a sudden 25 cars are charging and they all want to get 70 miles overnight, because you're not upgrading the service, doesn't that limit everyone's ability to charge?
Yes. The aggregate at any moment is limited by power, and then you multiply that by time, and you get the amount of energy that you can deliver. So at some point, the maximum energy you can deliver overnight is not enough to meet the needs of everybody who wants it. Um, we're nowhere near that, by the way. There's tons of energy available. And the nice thing about it being in your own
Does that
space,
mean, do you mean like generally
Because we
or
don't have enough
in,
EV drivers yet. There's not enough.
I think it's a gradual adoption. Yeah, we're typical building you're at 15 to 35%, and the average driving per day is 36 miles. And we provide the charging ports right where you're right where you're parking your car overnight. And so our clients build, they develop a habit similar like you do with yourself. I mean, when I climb into bed at night, I'll look at my cell phone and say, "Ooh, it's 43%. I think I'm going to roll the dice tomorrow." It's just convenient. You just plug it in. And it's the same thing with your car. It takes, an extra 5 seconds or 10 seconds to plug it in when it's right in your own space. So we just encourage people to leave it plugged in. Cars are there on average at home. Any guesses? 15 hours a day is
15?
the average.
Yeah.
The cars are parked at home. So we just haven't encountered that problem. If we do, we inform them through the app. We tell them how much they can get. Part of our software is predicting what's available. And the other thing is, sort of yesterday's technology is you look at the peak of the building over a month, and you take the worst 15 minutes. And let's say the building has, I don't know, an 800 amp service, and the worst 15 minutes of demand is 600 amps. So historically, it would say, great, you can only take 200 amps. You can never use more than 200 amps. But with this new standard, the UL 3141, it's dynamic energy management, which nobody has yet. But with dynamic energy management, that worst 15 minutes of 600 amps, in the middle of the night, it's only at 70 amps, and so you've got vastly more available. And so with all that energy available, you're not typically going to gonna run out. The other last thing I'd mention is we should talk about export and V2G, because there's also V to V. So
What's V to V?
Before we dive in, I want to, because this is we're diving right in, and this is great. This is going fast. It's going fast. But John, we like to talk about on the show that we're as fascinated by the entrepreneurial journey of folks like yourself as we are about the tech and how we're solving real world problems. So I gotta ask, like, Owen probably has a similar answer. Like, you guys both are you're selling these products to multifamily, and you both, Owen says this all the time, and you're saying it like, man, it's a pain in the ass. It's a tough nut to crack. It's like, why do you guys do this to yourselves? Why did you decide let's solve EV charging in multifamily?
No, John, I'm going to let you answer, but I've been saying this for a long time, and I just had an experience with one of the largest multifamily owners in the US, and the speed at which they were able to make a decision was mind-boggling to me. So I'm done saying that multifamily is a tough nut to crack. My new hypothesis is some multifamily leadership just doesn't have their shit together.
That's fair too.
Yeah.
Like, I think I've been blaming the industry for a long time, but it's not the industry. It's just organizationally, some don't know how to make decisions.
Yeah, and their decision is one piece of it. You still have to work with the utility. You still have to get a permit. So our process, it's a, it generally takes 12 to 16 months from the time of engagement. It takes, we got I want to answer both of your questions. I don't know which I should do first.
Go answer. Answer Owen's. What was yours?
I don't know.
Owen was
I didn't even know I had a question.
Is it really a tough nut to crack?
Okay, yeah, okay,
or do we just have crappy
tough nut to crack? Tough nut. Is it a really tough nut to crack? And also, why did you do this to yourself, John?
Yeah. So I do think we do a site evaluation. We put a proposal in front of the property owner, and it takes us, say, 2 months to get to a high level proposal. And then usually it's 2 to 3 months from there to get them to sign a contract. Once we have a signed contract, then we really dig in on the plans and working with the utility and the energy and the permit. And, when there's a need for, transformer work or anything like that, it adds 15 months. So lining up subsidies, we are moving beyond subsidies, by the way, to much better approaches.
Wait, the 15 months for a transformer, is that unique? I know you operate a lot in California. Is that unique to California, or is it probably the same
worldwide? In fact, 15 months is speedy. Yeah, we've seen 18 to 24 months if there's a transformer upgrade needed. It can take 2 months just to get information about the transformer from the utility. So, yeah. Why I do this to myself, I think in my own makeup, I have this hybrid. My dad was a welder at the Roebling Works, part of U.S. Steel in Trenton. It became the American Bridge Division, and he was a fix-it guy. And then he went to college, became a bridge designer, but he could just fix anything. He was just like a problem solver, and I got that from him. And then my mother was a sociologist and had a strong belief in social equity and people should have equal access and equal opportunity and things like that. And, fast forward, I was doing strategy. I started designing airplanes. That was my first job for McDonnell Douglas. And then in grad school, after grad school, I ended up at Bain, and I was giving advice. And I sort of realized that consultants give advice, and I really preferred building and creating things. And along the way, I did some volunteer activities that all came in, kind of intersected. So I was volunteering for Habitat for Humanity in Butte County after the fires up in Paradise, was shoulder to shoulder with really experienced electricians. Um, I had bought an EV and I thought it was amazing. And so I started volunteering as an EV ambassador at community outreach events. And then I was part of the Palo Alto Sustainability and Climate Action Plan. And through those latter two, I heard, first of all, half the people in Palo Alto live in multifamily. I was stunned. I had no idea it was that high. And then I heard people coming into these community events saying, I live in an apartment building, the landlord won't put in charging. And, or, I can't get convenient access to charging, so I don't want to buy an EV. And I heard it often enough. And then there's the cliche horror story, which I think is real. But I've had people describe where, plug in a 100-foot extension cord over the kitchen sink, open the window, drop the extension cord out the window, and and plug in your EV.
Owen's nodding his
I've
head.
seen,
yeah,
I've seen that at multifamily.
You've been to enough
like a
multifamily.
lot.
You see some stuff.
Yeah. So, and then I had landlords say, we have, for our landscapers, we had a plug around outside here and there, and people were plugging their EVs into it. So we had to actually disable those outlets. So the landlords absolutely did not want the, people on the property just grabbing it for free. So just heard that problem and just really wanted to solve it. And after interviewing people and finding out that it was a tractable problem, that this whole mindset, this gas station mindset, that you're going to fill your car from 0 to 100, drive it until it's down near 0, and then plug it in again and go to 0 to 100. There's still people who believe that.
Well, Owen and I are both EV owners, and I often, you hear these different pushbacks from different perspectives, but it's always like, what doesn't it do? It's not a gas station, and you don't have the long range, and the gas, even at the EV, the fast chargers, they're not fast enough. All these things I know you hear, but you can't, if you have a gas car, you can't fuel it at home. Like that's like and then that goes to a point I wanted to acknowledge here, which is this equitable piece. When I was at Block Power last year, we were trying to finance EV charging installations, and Block Power was big part of the mission was equitable decarbonization so it was heat pumps, and then it expanded a little bit into solar and EVs. And the point I learned a lot about, which is I think you're referencing here, John, so many people live in multifamily, and there are lots of benefits to owning an EV, and a lot of them is saving money on your fueling costs. But if you live in multifamily, it's like you don't have access, like people in single family homes, to charge at home. So I think it's a real thing what you're doing to solve equity challenges.
Yeah, and we do a survey. We white label it, so the property owner sends it out to all their residents before we we use it to size the installations and things like that. What is the level of interest? And we did a survey at a property that was across the street from a Target up in San Mateo. And in the Target parking lot is EVgo and about 20 Tesla superchargers. And on the survey, there were people who said, if I could get convenient charging in my own space, that would encourage me to renew my lease. And then somebody put in a comment and said, I don't want to have to walk a quarter mile, go over there, park my car, come back, and then return again half an hour later to get my car. So this convenience is a real thing. I think will drive EV adoption is economics and convenience. And I have high confidence in the future of EVs because the economics are so compelling. And once people try them, they realize they're more convenient, not less convenient than gas cars.
I think quality too. I mean, anyone that's ever driven an EV just understands it's a better car.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, certainly the performance and handling tends to be amazing. So
yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've only ever owned the Tesla I have now, which I love, but it's like I don't like driving my wife's car. It's like this is like going back in time.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. It feels like
it's
you're,
also a decent modern hybrid vehicle, but like yeah, I think once you experience the best, it's hard to go back.
my
Well,
previous gas car had a turbo in it. So it was like a 2 liter, but with a turbocharger. And I don't know if you ever driven, you hit the gas pedal and you're like, and then it goes,
yeah.
right? It's like a little delay. And when you're, yeah, pulling away from a light or out from a stop sign or, merging in, you need quick response. And EVs are just amazing. And then the maintenance is just so much. I mean, there's no actual friction moving parts in an EV motor. So I don't know. It's just
well, John,
when that,
we don't have much time, so let's get to the point you were trying to make when I cut you off earlier. So there's a problem you set out to solve with your company, specific to EV charging, multifamily, and capacity challenges, and this equitable access. So all good, but I know you and I have chatted about it recently offline, and you just were about to bring it up. There's a new frontier for the company, right? Your software, your energy management, what you're doing with vehicles enables what also is a real challenge that we're all currently facing and is about to continue getting worse, which is
yeah.
capacity in the grid, right?
And we are hiring and raising for this right now. But yeah, the export is right around the corner. And people have been thinking of EVs as a burden for the grid. And in fact, they're a phenomenal resource for the grid. And, we can control 100 to 200,000 cars. Um, Out of each one, we could export 7 kilowatts. You could get around, a gigawatt of potential power supply during peak. So for a couple of hours, and a gigawatt is like a modest sized nuclear power plant for people who are less familiar.
And in this scenario, the homeowner, the apartment dweller who has their car charging in their building, they would benefit financially in this scenario.
Yeah, absolutely. It turns out that we can make it so that people drive for free. So that's really sweet.
I want to
The
get into the
amount we,
wind. Sorry,
Right
go on.
on.
I didn't mean to interrupt. I just have a question mechanically, like if this is taking the direction the wrong way, Joel, you could tell me, but if all of these EV chargers are tied to the owner's electric account, how do you pay the EV
Oof,
owner?
no, we don't do that. So that's part of our differentiation
We
as
skip
well.
this
When we go
part.
into a
Yeah.
multifamily building, we put in a new panel. This is cheaper, by the way. It sounds like it would be more expensive. It's actually cheaper. We put in a new panel. There's a meter base at the top of it. The utility puts in a meter there. We are the ones with the relationship with the utility, and then we have hundreds of meters on our utility account. And so we can, set up an interconnect agreement that covers across all those meters. And then
Oh, yeah,
behind
it's
each
smart.
meter, we can get 30, 40, 50 EVs. And then we actually monitor what's happening with the transformer and what's happening with the switchgear. So we know what the burden is in, both directions.
So you're paying that meter's bill, but you're charging the EV owners to offset that expense?
Exactly. Exactly. So we get a bill from the utility. Yeah, the way our
Well,
billing
wait. Well, and
works.
let me clarify too, just while you're answering that, John. To add on it, then how does the owner benefit at all? Does the building owner get any
It's just a
monetization?
free amenity, right?
So the building owner gets, and we are moving beyond subsidies to a structured finance approach as well. That's in parallel to this, but really by next year, we don't need subsidies anymore. So it's just a structured finance kind of model. So in the structured finance, the property owner gets free infrastructure and attracts tenants. We can do a rev share with the building owner if we need to. That'll a little bit drive up the cost for the tenants. Yeah, we buy the electricity from the utility, we supply it to the tenants, and then during the peak times, it goes the other way. So if you want to look at a kind of a 24-hour cycle, at 9 o'clock, we say start 9 in the evening, we start charging the car up. By morning, we get it up to say 80%. The tenant drives, they average day 35 miles. They come home, their car's at 65 to 70% after driving 35 miles, and then this is all configurable on their app, but they make their car available. That can be their default, and they can set a minimum. And so we'll say take the car from 65% down to 35 or 40% between during the peak times, and then they're down to say 40% at 9 o'clock again, and kind of cycle repeats.
But to Owen's point, most EVs can't discharge now. I know you're saying like most of them are coming with this.
It's coming. We're working with a couple of vehicle OEMs. There's some pilots going on with San Diego Gas and Electric right now. So yeah, AC bidirectional is right around the corner, and yeah, it's really going to make it so that.
Well, I know you probably have NDAs, and maybe you're going to answer this question, but like I've heard this, I've read this, but who knows, what you read on the internet. Like I have a 2024 Tesla. It's my understanding it has the technology to do bidirectional, but it hasn't like been enabled. Is that true? Is that your understanding?
Some cars have it already. I don't know specific models. But yeah, I was told by a certain German car manufacturer that in this area, at least, Germany is ahead, and all their models worldwide will have this bidirectional capability relatively soon, and then it's just a matter of a software update to enable it for the individual car owners.
Well, we're kind of getting close to time, John. So we have one question we always wrap up with, which is more general. But I guess lots going on with your company. You said you're raising. Any last plugs to you're on the world's fastest growing sustainability podcast. So you're going to get all kinds of VCs and multifamily owners listening. So what's your last pitch to them?
I think that EV adoption is driven by economics. The cars are already cheaper than gas cars. They're cheaper to operate and maintain. And so this adoption is going to continue. If you look at worldwide, the US is falling behind, but worldwide, this is happening. And what we're doing is an ability to make, the world more sustainable, make it so that people can drive their cars for free, that landlords get free assets to improve their properties, and we stabilize the grid with a massive virtual power plant. Really address the problems of, AI data centers sucking it all up. So that's my plug.
A lot of free stuff in there. Sounds like the stuff our real estate clients want to hear. Well, okay, John, let's wrap up then here. You kind of were just segueing into what I'm going to ask you, but there's a lot of negativity, especially in this world of green building and sustainability at times, that we're not doing enough, we're not moving fast enough. The news is all bad, but we like to keep it focused on optimism here. So what gives you hope for the future?
I think it's that it's the economics of sustainability are compelling. It really, wind is cheaper than coal, so is solar. And if you have to deploy tons and tons of batteries, that adds a lot of cost. But if you can just effectively rent them from EV owners, you've now stabilized everything. it's unbelievably capital efficient. So yeah, I think I think the economics will win out. So I think the negativity is a domestic phenomenon, and I think the economics will just gradually win the day, carry the day.
You think you agree with that, Owen?
100%. I also just want to go back to the last thing you said, John, about economics are the reason that EVs will take over or get adopted faster. I think you can replace EVs with just clean tech. Like Joel and I talk a lot about this, just getting back to the basics and just pitching sustainability projects for their finance fundamentals.
Absolutely. Yeah, and the only challenge really is the old school stuff has a lot of lobbyists, and
Yeah.
you have to spend some time with you know energy commissions and utility commissions and so on, and building owners and decision makers, and just educate them on this.
Well,
Yeah, I
So
think the good news there, those like all these old out of Dutch people are just like aging out and dying.
that's what. Well, I was gonna say maybe a nicer way of that. It was like we're circumventing the old way of disseminating information through these lobbyists and the old boys networks with this podcast. We're getting the knowledge to the
I was
people.
just going to say, if there was only a great
Yeah.
vehicle for communicating and educating, the people at large,
It's the democratization
the
of
movers
lobbying.
and the shakers, boy, that would be amazing. I'd put money into that.
The last thing too, just on EVs, I think that there's so often like a false narrative around a lot of clean technologies. So windmills kill birds, they're not as good as combustion vehicles. But then
or the carbon footprint of the battery is worse somehow, which is
just
false.
takes like my father-in-law I was an early adopter of Tesla. I think I had a Tesla in 2014 or 15. My father-in-law talks so much shit about Teslas, how it's a terrible car, EVs or blah, 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 all this stuff. Took one ride in it.
Back then, before Elon was on the right?
Yeah, exactly. Started to come around once Elon went, did his thing.
Yeah.
But he had one ride in the Tesla, and then he's like, well, maybe I should look into this F-150 Lightning. Like, it's that fast. People ride in an EV, and then they forget all the talking points that they've heard on Fox News about them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the hope. And it's so, the frustrating part, and I've, commented on this before, but it's the kind of, it's new technology, and it's more cost effective. And if you try to steer the country towards an inefficient or old or obsolete technology, it's bad. Your country becomes uncompetitive. If back in 1915, if we had said, "Hey, agriculture, man, nothing beats the oxen and the plow," and that's how we stuck with that and said, "Forget about this John Deere stuff." John Deere was the Tesla of 1915. And if we said, yeah, no, that's terrible, man. The tires go flat, man. My, Bessie, got no tires, Anyway, we would not have world-class agriculture in the United States, right? And everybody else, we would have fallen behind, and everyone else would be exporting and grain and soy and whatever, So I don't know. It's just a recipe, being stuck in old, inefficient, more costly technology is not wise. So I hope that, I hope this swings around and ultimately the economics win out and people don't, stay with their more costly, older technology.
Well, let's wrap it up on that, John. So how do people find you? Let's plug your I know you're active yourself personally on LinkedIn. What's the GoPower
I'm
website?
active on LinkedIn, but yeah, GoPowerEV.com, GoPower.ai. Our power shift is AI based. So we have both domains. So that's the best way to find us. Sales at GoPowerEV.com certainly works for property owners.
Sounds good. Well, when you get all those VCs who listen to the show coming in your way, we'll take
That
a
would
cut.
be John Reister at GoPowerEV.com or GoPower.ai. Yeah.
Sounds good, John. Well, thanks for joining. We wish you the best of luck. We hope to have you back on in a year or so when you guys are out there continuing to crush it. So good luck. And thanks again for joining. And thank you, Owen, and thank you to our audience. You can also find Owen and I on LinkedIn, usually actively antagonizing the more talk, more complaining sustainability crowd. You can find this podcast and more great content at lesstalkmoreaction.com. If you like the podcast, please subscribe, like, and share with your friends. And until next time, we encourage you to ask yourself, what are you doing to take action to make the world a better place?